Dana White's Contender Series. This is Season 6, Episode 4. We got 5 fights on Tuesday night. I'm John Kelly. Let's hear the picks. Kicking things off in the lightweight division, we have Nazim Sejakov coming in as a minus 260 favorite. The comeback on Ahmad Hassan Zada is plus 220. And Sejakov trains out of Longo and Weidman's MMA in New York. He's a 6-1 prospect. 4 of his wins have come by knockout, and he seems to be a pretty well-rounded fighter on tape. You know, the striking skills is definitely there. He's very light on his feet. He has some powerful leg kicks. Obviously has the power in his hands as well if he's able to connect clean. He just seems like a well-rounded fighter, and training at a strong wrestling-based camp like Longo Weidman MMA in New York, he's been able to show off some excellent takedown defense across the regional scene. I'd be surprised if this guy's able to take him down, if that's even in the game plan. And on the other side, Hassan Zada is an 8-1 prospect. He fights out of Afghanistan, and he's actually spent all of his regional scene over in Afghanistan, so he's never fought in the U.S., to my knowledge. At least nothing on his record states that, but he's definitely faced lower level competition. But the guy seems to have an okay skill set. Like, I don't want to completely write him off because his striking's pretty sharp. He'll look to mix in some uppercuts, some nasty elbows. He really tries to cut you open with those elbows. And then on the flip side, he could be taken down, but he never accepts position. You know, he's fighting off his back constantly looking to do damage. He's even won a couple rounds after being taken down and spending most of the round on his back just due to the damage. So he's just a guy that I think is going to be able to always be in the fight. Like, he will fight for your money. The problem is, I just think skill set wise, I favor the Sejakov side. I think he's the cleaner striker, more technical, probably a little bit more powerful as well. And I don't expect either guy to look for takedowns here, but if somebody were to, I think it's got to be the ground game of Sejakov here, where I think he would have a clear edge on the mat if it goes there. He's just a little bit sharper on defense, and I think he probably finds the knockout here. So we're going with the favorite in the first fight of the night. It's Nazim Sejakov by knockout is the official pick, and he's going to be the pick for the D-Gen parlay as well. Next fight up in the women's bantamweight division, we have Haley Cowan coming in as a small favorite, minus 165. The comeback on Claudia is plus 140. And Haley Cowan, I think, is an impressive prospect. She spent most of her regional time over in LFA. You know, she had like 7 or 8 fights over there before making her Invicta debut, which she won a second-round submission. That was her last fight. She's an 8-2 prospect, seems to have a well-rounded skill set. She fights from the southpaw stance, does have some powerful leg kicks. She's actually knocked out somebody cold with one of those big leg kicks. So while the fight plays out at range, she is a dangerous fighter with those leg kicks, and she seems to be pretty well-rounded in terms of the grappling as well. The problem is defensively, she's put herself in some bad spots before. You know, typically she's good at fighting out of those spots. You know, she'll find a strong whizzer. She's able to beat her opponents to the position in scrambles. She's reversed people multiple times as well. The problem is sometimes in those scrambles, she gets a little bit careless, you know, gives up her back, gives up her neck. She's been choked out in both of her professional losses. So that is the biggest leak from what I can tell in her game, but I also don't think she's a terrible grappler and she's just going to get insta-sub by anybody who she faces. So she's definitely a very good athlete. She comes from a former NCAA All-American gymnast background, and she's got cardio for days. And the last thing I'll say is she spent her training camp at Elevation Fight Team, so training in Colorado there. You know the cardio is going to be on point. That was never an issue for her before. She's got a bunch of training rounds in with Miranda Maverick, who's a regular training partner of hers, who also has a fight in the UFC coming this weekend. So that's obviously something that helps out as well. And then on the flip side, her opponent, Claudia, I think is an okay prospect. You know, it's kind of funny. They were trying to get matched up on the regional scene prior to this, and then they just ended up getting matched up on Contender Series fights. So they know a lot about each other, and this was a fight that Cowan actually wanted. But Leite, she just basically is, you know, she's powerful on the feet. Don't get me wrong. Like, she's jacked. She trains out of Brazil with Josiah Nunes. But outside of her pure power, it's really just the wrestling. That is her clear game plan. You know, she's looking to take her opponents down, grind on them, control them on the mat. And so far, she's been successful in doing that. But I think the level of competition is just a bit lower than what Haley Cowan has faced. And Cowan, like I said, has shown pretty good takedown defense, good in the scrambles as well. So I'm not convinced that Leite is going to be able to just take her down multiple times and grind on her and control her on the mat. I just don't really see it happening, especially because the most obvious thing that I saw in breaking down these two fighters is Leah gasses out in all of her fights. She pushes an aggressive wrestling pace that she can't keep up. There were multiple times on the regional scene where she was gassed out even in the second round. There was a fight that comes to mind. It was a fight that she lost, I believe, where even in the second round, her and the girl she was fighting are just, punch drunk, swinging to the death in the end of the second round, just totally gassed out. And that's something that seems to be a trend for her. And then on the flip side, Cowan's, like I said, her cardio is always in check, and getting her camp in at elevation fighting, I expect that to be the biggest advantage in this match. But I also just think Cowan's the better striker. If she can keep this on the feet, I think she gets her hand raised here. So Haley Cowan by decision is going to be the official pick, and she's the second pick for the DGen parlay. Which brings us to our next fight in the bantamweight division. We have Jose Johnson coming in as a small favorite, minus 135. The comeback on Jack Cartwright is plus 115. And you might recognize the name Jose Johnson because he actually fought on Contender Series back in 2020. He fought everybody's favorite prospect, Ronnie Lawrence. He was a favorite in that fight, and Ronnie Lawrence did his typical game plan, took him down multiple times, grinded on him, and got his hand raised, got the contract. So they're giving Jose Johnson another shot because since then, he beat Mo Miller, who was an impressive prospect, fought on Contender Series last season as well, looked really great. There was a lot of controversy. I was actually fired up on Twitter because I thought Mo Miller deserved a contract, looked great with the wrestling on Contender Series. Jose Johnson submitted him in the second round in that fight, and then he followed it up with a first round knockout finish in under like 30 seconds. So the dude has clear power. You look at the record, 14-7, and it doesn't leave you super inspired, but it's really just his typical fighting style is to kill people or get killed doing so, and that's his biggest issue. That's his biggest weakness, is his durability. He's been submitted 3 times in his career. He's been knocked out by Liamana Martinez, current UFC fighter, who obviously has some knockout power, but that's really the biggest leak in his game, is just defensively he gets a little bit sloppy, especially in terms of the grappling. But you look at this guy, he's definitely a great striker. He mixes in a lot of kicks, super long for the division. He'll mix in the elbows as well, a lot of variety of strikes, and while this fight plays out at range, I do expect him to have a sizable advantage while the fight plays out on the feet. And it's kind of funny because most people think, okay, just take this guy down and you could beat him that way. And he was taken down multiple times by Mo Miller as well. But he's a guy similar to Hassan Zada in the first fight. He doesn't accept position very often. He's very good at working back to his feet, making you work, making you to continue to work. He's not a terrible grappler, and he actually comes from a high school wrestling background, had a scholarship to Michigan State. It didn't end up working out, but the guy's not clueless in terms of the grappling. So on the flip side, against Jack Cartwright, that's probably going to be his game plan here. He's a 10-0 undefeated prospect. 10-0, like I said, he's never lost, but his last fight, he's the Cage Warriors bantamweight champion, but even in his last fight, I honestly thought he was losing that fight. He ended up getting the win due to technicality because the dude who he fought just could not stop headbutting him. And I know the guy was super fired up that he kept getting point deductions, and eventually the fight was stopped due to headbutts. But he really was just headbutting him. And it sucks because he was actually, I think, winning that fight. He landed multiple takedowns against Jack Cartwright. And it's kind of funny because Cartwright, his game plan is going to be the wrestling, the grappling. He is a pretty good offensive grappler in that sense. But defensively, he's not very good. He doesn't have much off his back. You can take this guy down. I don't really think that Jose Johnson is going to do that because I expect him to be the better striker here. But on the feet, Cartwright's not a terrible striker himself. He does mix in the leg kicks quite a bit, beat up his opponent's legs, and Jose Johnson has been susceptible to that in the past with those long legs getting kicked to death. And Cartwright has a little bit of power in his hands as well, but I just think Jose Johnson's a lot cleaner, a lot more experience on the feet. This dude had 80 amateur fights even before he went professional, and now he has 21 professional fights already across his regional debut. And like I said, he's faced some actual real competition, whereas Jack Cartwright, over in Cage Warriors, not the highest level in terms of what Jose Johnson has faced. So I just expect Johnson to be the better striker. If he is taken down once or twice, as long as he doesn't get submitted here, I think he works back to his feet and wins the striking, eventually finds the knockout shot. So Jose Johnson's going to be the pick in this one, and he's the play for the DGen DGen parlay as well. Up next in the middleweight division, we have Claudio Ribeiro coming in as the smallest of favorites at -120. The comeback on Ivan Bam Bam Valenzuela is +100. And Claudio Ribeiro is a 9-2 prospect fighting out of Brazil. 8 of his 9 wins have come by knockout. 7 of those have come inside of the first rounds. And if you can put 2 and 2 together based on his record, that is exactly how he fights. He is extremely powerful, extremely explosive, but he has to find that kill shot early. Is he able to do that? Absolutely. You look across his regional scene, he's basically just blitzing forward, swinging these wild hooks like Francis Ngannou style, just trying to connect. And credit to him, when he does connect, guys are going to sleep. So it's clear he has the power, great athlete, but in terms of the rest of his game, I have some serious question marks in terms of his defensive grappling. You know, even throughout his regional tape, he's been held against the cage for extended minutes, and he hasn't really fought anybody in terms of the level of competition. So I have some concerns here, especially if he's unable to find that kill shot. He's not very technical, very sloppy defensively. Honestly, I don't know why he's the favorite here, because on the flip side, Valenzuela is the middleweight champion over in Lux Promotion. He's fought better competition than that of Ribeiro, but also he comes from a Muay Thai striking background. He actually had a 36-7 Muay Thai striking record. So, I mean, the guy's going to be a lot cleaner on the feet. He's also a lot more patient. And at times, I don't like that because he's actually not doing enough. But he's very, very selective in picking his shots, whereas Ribeiro is just going to be throwing everything in the kitchen sink. So I could see Ribeiro just going for the kill shot. If he doesn't get that, then I strongly favor the Valenzuela side. I just think he's much sharper on the feet. In terms of the rest of his game, I do have some questions with Valenzuela as well. He's only fought out of the first round twice in his career, but he does have some tight chokes in his arsenal. He has 3 or 4 wins by guillotine, but that mostly comes from when other people try to grapple him. I don't really expect Ribeiro to do that here, so I think we do have a striking match. It's a high variance fight where either guy can win by knockout, but give me the guy who I think is much more skilled from a technical standpoint, who's fought better competition. He spent this training camp at Extreme Couture, so he's getting rounds in with better guys as well. I don't get why he's the dog here. I got him as a favorite, so I'm going to be betting Valenzuela as a dog individually, and he's going to be our dog play in the 4th fight of the night for the DGen parlay as well. Which brings us to our main event in the lightweight division. We have Esteban Ribovix coming in as a -365 favorite, and Thomas Paul on the comeback at +300. And Esteban Ribovix is an undefeated prospect. He's 10-0 fighting out of Argentina. He's got 5 wins by knockout, the other 5 coming by submission. 3 or 4 of those have come by Kimura, and that is something that he definitely looks for in a lot of his fights. You know, for whatever reason, he is always looking for that Kimura, and he's been pretty successful with that throughout the regional scene. Now, he has not faced much competition, but neither has his opponent, which I'll get to Thomas Paul in a bit. But Ribovix seems to be a powerful striker. He fights from a southpaw stance. He does switch stances as well, mixes in some powerful leg kicks. He's definitely got a heavy left hand that if he lands clean, he does have the power to put you out. But on the flip side, Thomas Paul, 11-3 prospect. All 11 of his wins have come by knockout. And I mentioned the level of competition for Ribovix being pretty relatively low. Thomas Paul, it's even lower in my opinion. He fights out of England, has faced a lot of questionable competition, and he basically just, you know, he's going to bring a lot of variance into this fight. You know, he is your typical like dog fighter where he's going to go out and fight for your money. The problem is he's just not super talented. Now, he is powerful and he will, you know, go for it. He will really go for it. And that's about the best thing I could say about him, especially at a +300 price tag. So if you want to take the dog shot on a sloppy, you know, very low level with question marks on both sides and what should be a high variance fight, I'm not going to fault you for that. I'm still going with the Ribovix side. I don't really trust the durability of Thomas Paul. He's been finished in all 3 of his professional losses, 2 by submission, 1 by knockout. But even in his last fight, he was clipped and rocked early in that fight. Yes, he was able to fight through it and get the finish, but I don't really think the durability is quite there. And that was against mostly lower level competition. If Ribovix is able to connect on him clean with his big left hand, I think he's probably going to sleep here. So Ribovix by knockout is the official pick. I know the line is wide. I wouldn't bet Ribovix Ribovix individually, but I still have to lean with him for the DGen parlay, closing things out. So to recap for the DGen parlay in the first fight of the night, we're going with Nazim Sejakov as the favorite here. I just think he's the more well-rounded fighter in what should be a pretty fun fight. In the second fight, we're going with my girl Haley Cowan, the former All-American gymnast. I just think the athleticism, the experience, getting rounds in an elevation fight team, that cardio is going to be a big factor here. So I'm actually hoping that line comes down a little bit closer as some of these other books have it lined so that I can bet her individually as well. We'll see come Saturday, but she's the pick in the second fight. The third fight, we're going with my guy, Jose Johnson. The experience, he's much more experienced. I still have some questions on the Jack Cartwright side. I'm just not sure he's going to be able to land multiple takedowns here and control Jose Johnson for extended minutes, and Johnson should have the striking advantage. In the fourth fight, we're going with the dog here, and Ivan Bam Bam Valenzuela. I honestly think he should be the favorite here. He's the better fighter. He really just has to avoid that big early power from Ribeiro, and I think he does that to get his hand raised. And then, of course, in the main event, we're going with my guy Esteban Ribovix. I just think the line's probably wide here, but I do think he's the better fighter. I trust his durability a little bit more, and being the younger fighter, there's probably a little bit of more room for improvements than that on the Paul side, who's basically just going to come in here and try to take your head off, and if he's unable to do that, he usually wilts. So that's going to be it, guys. Best of luck. 5 fights on Tuesday. Should be another fun card. As always, appreciate the support, and we'll see you next time.